Hello and welcome to my review of the upcoming patch 6.2. This, overall, is a decently interesting patch. It is a bit of a mixed bag, yes, but there are some good features that we could really benefit from in the future. The rough plan is just to go through this patch roughly feature by feature, so let's just get right into it and talk about the raids. I haven't done any raid testing yet, sorry about that. But what I have done is I've watched the live tests from Fat Boss and Final Boss, and also watched many of the different videos surrounding them. Based on those and Blizzard's track record of just delivering excellent, top-notch raid content all the time, I've got no reason to believe that they won't stay the course. This is probably going to be another fantastic raid. Now, there are some qualms about the gearing and the ramping up item levels, but at the end of the day, the numbers aren't really that crazy, and I'm motivated by killing bosses, not really the loot that they drop. Though some of those class trinkets from Archimond are certainly really cool. The fights look great from what I can see, and the art is hugely impressive. Overall, that's kind of what I care about. It would appear that, as is the norm with Warlords of Draenor, if you're a raider, well, then you're pretty much covered. Next, let's talk about Time Walker dungeons. These are an odd thing. I know that many people who sort of played the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King don't really care for them that much, and I did play during those expansions, especially Wrath, and honestly, I've kind of enjoyed them on the PTR. They've recently been fixed up to actually provide slightly relevant difficulty. I mean, look, it's still piss easy, but at least if you, turn your back and don't click your buttons, you will die, unlike in the previous version. And honestly, I think these might be a fun little side thing to do. I would like it if there was a larger system surrounding these dungeons, and I also would have liked it if they did a bit more to fix up the gameplay. Mainly, I just wish they increased the frequency at which bosses actually executed their mechanics. Still, I think this could be fun on alts. I just really wish they were a little bit harder. That would have been nice, and also, I wish they gave me a reason to go back on my main, because once you're above eye level 660, there's not much of a point. Something like a transmog set or some unique rewards would have been really cool, and perhaps they will make a sort of Time Walkers faction or just a larger overall feature to surround this functionality. Next, let's talk about Mythic dungeons. It's really nice to have relevant dungeon content in the game, and these do actually have loot balancing that generally matters, with the end bosses giving you gear that's item level 705. The difficulty, however, is pretty low if you're half decent at playing the game. In fact, these seem about as hard as the heroic dungeons did at their intended gear level, and that's when I did the Mythic dungeons normalized down to item level 660. If you're going in with a character that's maybe 680 or 690 from your current raids in BRF, then these will be absolutely piss easy, which is a little bit unfortunate. However, the big thing is that these are not new dungeons, and there is no getting around that fact. Yes, it's great that these dungeons will matter a little bit more, but what gets people excited is having new content to do. We've already cleared Skyreach. Doing it again with more numbers, is that really a lot more fun? Honestly, I just don't think so. There would need to be more dungeons if I was to be excited about this feature. Looking through Hellfire Citadel, you can actually tell that there's just been an immense amount of artistic work that's went in. The place just looks damn amazing. So why not use those aesthetics and art assets and just throw some dungeons together? It's not extra art, it's just level design time, I suppose. Winged Dungeons worked for ICC, Ulduar, the original Hellfire Citadel, and loads of other dungeons. So sadly, while Mythic is a really nice idea, it just isn't new content, and that's really sad. However, moving into the future, they may use this Mythic framework to add new dungeons, perhaps in the next expansion or something like that, so there's certainly potential. Next, let's talk about the Shipyard. As with the Garrison followers, I just don't think this feature offers interesting long-term gameplay. It is better than the follower system, yes, and that is good, but there's still no actual gameplay for our characters. Now, if we were hopping off our ships to do rare scenarios with our followers or something like that, or if we could maybe crew our own personal flagship with the followers from our garrison, and then go off and do scenarios with them, that would be great. The same goes for the idea of using our ships to actually explore and get access to the smaller islands around the main landmass of Draenor. Stuff like that would be cool. Maybe you could have a new version of the Isle of Giants and just cool little islands with interesting, unique things going on that we could only visit using our cool ships. But as it stands, your interactions with this system are pretty much the same as the follower system. You just click in a few menus and that pretty much is that. Though what I do like about this is that the gear from it is not above your current raid difficulty, so it does cause less loot progression problems than the patch 6.0 system, and that certainly is good. The ships themselves, and actually all of the art assets surrounding these, are really impressive. The whole thing it's really pretty and nice, and it feels good building those things up initially, but they're just not tied to gameplay on our characters. It doesn't actually cause any fun, any like real tangible fun. It doesn't make you feel like a badass, so overall, the Shipyard, it's gotta be a dud from me, I'm afraid. Next, we have the Adventure Guide. This isn't content, but fuck it, I think it's a nice little feature that new players, or people who have just dinked, will appreciate. One concern, perhaps, is that by laying it all out in the Adventure Guide, they kind of remove the sense of adventure from the endgame stuff, but to be honest, I don't think queuing for something as an adventure anyway, and having this in there to just point people in the right direction, it's probably something good. It's not something that most of the people who are watching this video will be into, but there's a lot of casual players who don't really stay up to date with all the latest stuff, they don't maybe read the patch notes, so if they see this adventure guide pop up, then hey, maybe it'll help them and maybe it will set them on the path to doing some sort of new, challenging and fun content. Moving on, we have Tanaan Jungle. Oh, Tanaan, right. Aesthetically, I love this place. It's got a great overall look and it does an excellent job of making each one of the little sub-regions feel pretty different. Seriously, like that marsh zone, it's just beautiful. But let's actually just hop on to the gameplay of the zone. Well, it's more of the same from 6.0, but better. How is it better? Well, in 6.0 the rewards were poorly balanced and they weren't very compelling. That's no longer the case in 6.2. You can go into Tanaan, you can spend your time, and you can get pretty good rewards for doing so. The balancing of the Baleful gear, which is the main gear you get from there, especially with how it upgrades to item level 695 after spending 20,000 Apexes, is pretty much a direct counter to the idea of people being stuck in their garrisons due to a lack of a compelling reward. No, Tanaan is worth doing if you don't have like top-end raid gear, so unless you're a raider, it is going to matter. The gameplay itself, though, is going to be a problem for some. It's a bunch of Apexes zones. All the problems that are inherent to those that lead designer Ian Hazzikostas himself admitted to in a recent developer Q&A are still present. There just hasn't been enough time for them to fix those, I think, base fundamental problems. Another issue is how some of them are way slower to complete than others. Seriously, the one in Zeth Gol takes like twice, maybe 3 times as long as one of the other ones. It's a bit bizarre. The faster ones are a bit more fun because, well, you feel like you're actually achieving and progressing at a good rate, and usually an Apexes area is fast because there's some sort of fun mechanic to use, like blowing up the siege engines or hopping in a cannon. For the ones that don't have a fun mechanic like that, they really do get a little bit dull, and that is unfortunate. Now, there are reputations. These were a bit of a late addition, and they're only a very small improvement over the patch 6.0 ones. The Saber Stalkers are a rep grind, just like Xiao Hao, and then the Order of the Awakened and then the one based on your faction are both just passively earned by doing regular dailies, so they don't add much gameplay to the zone, and those regular dailies, by the way, like, they're not really new bits of content. There's a few of them to kill like 10 mobs here and 10 mobs there, and there's a daily quest which you get after your first Apexes mission, which is just to do 2 more Apexes missions. They're not really daily quests that are specific to the lore and aesthetic of the factions to which they give reputation, which means that those factions don't feel unique, and also those factions don't have any unique story content either. So it really is a bit of a dud. Now, the quests are definitely laid out in a pretty grindy way. After doing one Apexes area, you are tasked with doing another 2. This might be a little bit much, and I wish there was some quest content outside the Apexes zones that was maybe tied into the lore of some of these reputations that fleshed them out a little bit or gave them just a bit more feel, but no, it's pretty much just do Apexes missions, the other 1 or 2 quests you'll do in the middle of those Apexes missions, and go grind some Saberon. That's pretty much Tanaan. A little bit unfortunate, and I don't think it's going to have that much longevity. Next, I suppose we've got the Garrison campaign. I've only done a few missions of this, but I have seen the others on YouTube. I kind of didn't want to spoil them for myself, at least the latter ones. And what I'll say here is that the lore is cool and you get to see some really cool areas. Sadly though, it's just not challenging, and I really wish that the Garrison campaign, the story of Draenor, I wish it was challenging. There's no challenge in WoW with a solo context outside of maybe the Brawlers Guild or stuff like that. I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity. I mean, this stuff is decent enough for the sake of the story, but there's no gameplay to match the scale and scope and, you know, coolness of the lore that's going on. It's just very asinine in that way, which is maybe unfortunate. Also, moving on to the legendary quest, look, I'm sure the actual questy components are awesome, they usually are, but we just have another grind on our hands. I couldn't be bothered. I ground up those Secrets of the Empire, the Mogu Runes of Fate, the other thing from the Mogu place. I've grounded up my silly stones from High Mall, the Elemental Tablets. Oh, wow, these legendary quests are so dull, they are so boring, and for, I think, the vast majority of players, all they do is say, hey you, go into LFR every week, clear it all, that's how you get your legendary ring. I don't think these legendary items are backed up by legendary gameplay. I think it's a terrible system, a really terrible system, and really it probably just leads to burnout, because I don't think people really enjoy doing LFR every single week. I mean, sure, if it's your regular raid with your friends, then that's cool, but I think for a lot of people, LFR is about hop in, get some gear, do it once or twice, that's it, you know, you're kind of done, you've seen the content. I just don't think it's up to snuff for grinding it out that many times. So yeah, legendary quest, you're a dud. Blizzard, come on, work out some sort of way, and I've given ideas before about just not doing one of those grind systems, because they are crap, I don't think anyone likes them. Next, we've got the bonus events. Now, this is a bit of an odd system. Part of me feels like it's maybe a way to keep people subscribed to the game and sort of egg them on from event to event, but another part of me thinks that this will create some decently fun events that can drive people to play the game a little bit. For an example, if you are really into dungeons, then the dungeon weekend could be really cool. You'll get up with your reps, you'll get a bit of raid gear for doing 3 mythics, and you'll be doing mythics. That maybe will drive some fun for the people who like that content. If you're looking forward to, say, getting an alt geared, then maybe the Time Walker events will be really cool for that. Same goes for the pet battles. I don't like the idea of the PvP bonus thingy, because I think maintaining an even curve is just integral to a season's balance. So that's a little bit strange. Honestly, I don't care about these too much, but I guess if you're finding yourself having limited time to play that you can schedule, then maybe being able to schedule that around these could be a nice bonus to you. Still, these are not new bits of content, they're just a reason to do pre-existing stuff, so it's hard to get particularly excited over them. Next, we've got PvP, and I'm not much of a PvPer, but from what I can tell, this is a pretty terrible patch if you're into PvP. You will have to participate in Ashran if you want to gear optimally, which, from what I hear, is going to be a disappointment to many. Other than that, though, I've got no real idea what the class balance is like, but you've got no new arenas, you've got no new battlegrounds. It's pretty much going to be the same as the final patch, just that maybe in the final, or the previous one, if you were able to skip Ashran, now you're probably not, because that's where your offset gear comes from, and you'll need to get that once every week in order to stay up on the gearing curve. Next, let's just talk about the tier gear, and just the art. The tier gear for 18 is a real mixed bag. I actually like the non-mythic hunter stuff, but only on some character models, and most of the rest range from sort of really not that good to okay. I don't think we have that much in the way of standout sets, but some of the sets do have particularly maybe the odd goofy sort of bit, like with the priest shoulders, that could actually work into some transmogs in a way that's really interesting. So no matter what, I mean, these will eventually add some gameplay with the transmog system. A big, I think, yeah, like this is a bit of a step down from tier 17, I'd say overall. But like there is some good stuff. As I said, I like the Hunter if you're into a more low-key set, which for Hunters I am. Warlocks and Rogues I think get some pretty cool stuff as well. One other big change is that they're having it so that it's the same set for PvE and PvP, and then they have recolors determine where the gear is actually from. So the regular raid stuff is analogous to Conquest gear, and the Mythic stuff is analogous to Elite PvP gear. Basically, you kind of get the basic set for doing the regular content, and you get the badass set for doing the hard content, and depending on whether you are PvP or PvE, it's just supposed to be, oh, that person's in the badass set, clearly they're badass, I suppose. I don't really mind this too much, though I think that maybe having separate sets did give people more motivation to do some of the other bits of content for maybe transmog purposes. Again, not 100% sure on that, but they're just some rough thoughts. I originally didn't have this in my notes, but it's probably worth just very quickly mentioning the professions. The gatherers out there will have a reason to gather nodes in Tanaan Jungle, so that's going to be very nice for you. Though, seriously, if you're a gatherer, work on your Draenor Pathfinder so you can fly, because, well, flying is going to be very, very good for your craft or your gathering throughput. And then if you are a crafter, I think what they're doing is they are massively buffing your personal daily cooldown in comparison to the one that just comes from your Garrison work orders, which should give you a little bit more freedom in what you craft. And they're also putting in epic gems, but they are super expensive. That said, I find it hard to be excited by gems because of the way that their new gearing system works with the gem sockets being a proc, so don't really care about that. But certainly, if you are a profession person, it does seem like this patch overall is going to be an improvement to your gameplay. So, in conclusion, this is a patch that is great for those who prefer to only log in to raid. From what I've seen and the feedback that I've heard from raiders, who I really do respect the opinion of, it is a fantastic raid that looks beautiful with excellent bosses. If you don't raid, or if you want something to do in between your raids, then it gets a bit strange. Tanaan does not have a great deal of longevity, however it is clearly built for alts in mind, similar to how elements of the Timeless Isle were done. If you are in a guild, then having access to Mythic dungeons will be a pretty nice touch, and actually overall, if you're going into this patch with normal BRF gear, then you should have quite a good time actually. You'll have good fun getting all your upgrades from Tanaan and then of course from the Mythic dungeons. So there is gameplay to be had there. I do worry that it won't last for a long time, but you will probably have fun going out, getting loads of Apexis crystals, gearing up your stuff, seeing your character really grow in power quite fast. The problem is, after that power growth, there might not be a lot unless you are going to be in a regular raiding schedule. If you're a raider with heroic or higher gear, then Tanaan and Mythic dungeons will probably have some upgrades, but you're likely going to gear pretty quickly out of that, leaving your main Tanaan gameplay being just about the cosmetic things. There are mounts, but the reps that are sort of involved in getting them suck and they don't contain any unique story elements. And overall, Tanaan Jungle, it's just quite weak and it doesn't bring anything new to the table. Back in Mists of Pandaria, we saw innovation with every major content patch. Each one gave us new ideas and new mechanics. Look at patch 5.2, you had the treasure scenario, you had the way their daily quests were done, the progression across the island. In 5.3, yeah, it had bad story, not a great deal of content, but there were those world events going on, which they could have better integrated into Tanaan, so that's definitely a thing. And in 5.4, you had the Timeless Isle stuff. And while the Tanaan Jungle does feel a bit like the Timeless Isle, there were some more jovial, fun bits of Timeless Isle that I think Tanaan sort of misses out on. But overall, yeah, Tanaan is quite similar to the 5.4 stuff, just that it's all about Apexis dailies, which is a good chance you'll be kind of sick of them already. Really, this time it's more of what we had in patch 6.0, albeit designed in a way that will actually make you care about the rewards. So if you raid a lot, this is going to be a very fun patch. If you don't raid, then the staying power isn't that strong, especially with, say, Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward coming out soon, and that game just being very competitive in the MMO space currently, and then also the Steam sale just giving people access to a lot of fun for the price of a World of Warcraft subscription for a month. Blizzard's lack of innovation with the world content in this patch is really quite unfortunate. They just could have done a lot more of this zone to make it feel like a battlefield, you know, maybe make it feel a little bit more dynamic. Right now, the enemy doesn't feel like an enemy because it's neatly packed away in the little Apexis zones, and people are already bored of the Apexis zones. The reps don't have their own storylines, it just doesn't feel like they've really tried to make Tanaan that awesome, which is really weird. It's like the content kind of sucks and they tried to buffer it up by having a well-designed reward curve, and that is all well and good and it is probably for the best, but even if the rewards are interesting, the gameplay still isn't really up to snuff. Tanaan is a beautiful zone that just lacks substance. The features that this patch brings are cool, but again, they're not really new bits of content. The Time Walker dungeons already exist, and there isn't really a strong cosmetic system that surrounds them, so they will quickly just be very irrelevant. Mythics offer strong gear, but there are no new dungeons to actually back up this system, and this is disappointing within the context of patch 6.2, but I think this system could have a lot of potential in the future. They could use Mythic to add new dungeons and further sort of expand the Time Walker system a little bit, which could lead to some great stuff. So the groundworks are there, but they just haven't been built upon. Now, the Shipyard is slightly less rubbish than the follower system, but it belongs in a phone app, not really a fully fledged PC title. So overall, yeah, it's a weak patch, I'm afraid. It does little to innovate, and if you grew tired of patch 6.0 quickly, then you will likely grow tired of this really rather quickly. The core gameplay issues are still there despite Blizzard's efforts to mitigate them with their reward distribution. The raiders can probably rejoice though, because Blizzard pretty much never fails to deliver an excellent raid tier, so you will have a lot of fun there. This patch was, honestly, it was likely just too soon after launch for them to apply most of the lessons learned from 6.0 and 6.1, so I suppose we just need to hope that the future WoD patches and maybe the next expansion learn from those mistakes, because frankly, if every other patch was going to follow this formula, World of Warcraft would not be in a very good state this time next year. So hopefully you're a raider, hopefully you find a good group of people to raid with, because that does seem to be the way to experience patch 6.2. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I will have loads of guides surrounding all the various things in this patch to help you be all efficient and have fun and things like that, should you be interested, and they will be on the channel in the coming few days. Anyway, that's it for me, and I will see you next time.